All right, guys. Ethan is currently in the drama cycle. He had the conversation with Hassan, which was really a 2-on-1 with Hassan and Dan, and Ethan took the epic W. I have a video on that. If you disagree, watch it or don't. I don't care. If you don't want to be informed, I have an opinion. I just don't care why you're here, right? Anyway, apparently he had I'll put it in the description. Apparently he had a conversation on his After Dark. It was capitalism versus communism mega debate. So Ethan is really going into the sphere, he's really getting political, which is interesting. But I guess now that we're kind of moving closer and closer to like election season, it makes sense. Because more and more like political stuff is part of the general conversation. Either way, when it comes to communism versus capitalism, me personally, I think that a nice mixture between the two works well. I don't think that fundamentally, I don't think that having like a money drive or focus, people working harder to get particular things, I don't think that's bad, but I do think that it can lead to really bad things, and that's why there needs to be some areas where there's government regulation. I think something like healthcare shouldn't be super financially driven. It should be more about trying to provide services to people, things of that nature. I'm a big advocate for like a UBI, some kind of UBI, or some kind of a negative income tax to get more money from the top into people's hands, because you need to have money flowing, especially with technology displacing jobs and driving down wages. I think that we need to figure something out different, all that 9 yards. So I'm for capitalism, but more like democratic, what do they call it? Democratic, social, whatever. It doesn't matter. We need some things to be run by the government. The police are run by the government. The fire department's run by the government. Roads are run by the government. Hospitals should probably get to that point. We should make a step towards that direction. And we need to have restrictions that help people actually live and survive. So let's get this going. Let's see how this goes. People are saying Ethan got chewed out. We're going to look at some of the Twitter responses after the conversation happens.
We don't have much time, so let's pick the UFO Mexican Congress story is pretty great. We never talked about
we didn't talk about the aliens, that's true. And we didn't talk about this Nelp thing, right? The Nelp thing's pretty good.
It is, yeah, it is.
Let's do the Nelp.
Oh, this one guy I got to put on blast. Hold on.
Uh-oh.
Okay, Tim Gerner. Okay. Property developer and multimillionaire Tim Gerner has expressed the view that employees have grown too arrogant and believe that a substantial increase in unemployment, especially in the construction sector, is necessary to boost productivity. Listen to this fucking psycho.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay.
Dude, this guy's gonna get me killed. He does not. Here, can you do me a favor, Ian? Put up that this dumbass's views do not reflect mine. Not for YouTube, but just for the audience, the communists watching, the radical communists watching.
My wife gave me a meat pie. Hopefully, there's no onions in it, or I'm gonna be angry.
You guys not cold? It's like
a little cold.
here.
Yeah, it's a little cold.
Turn off the air.
Yeah.
I mean, the audacity to go out and say something in public, like this is some insightful thing. I mean, this man is a demon. Listen to this shit. Gerner Group. So change the name. It's Psycho Gerner Group.
I think the problem that we've had is that we have people decided they didn't really want to work so much anymore through COVID, and that has had a massive issue on productivity.
Well, I don't think anybody decided they didn't want to work. I think people were forced not to work, and then different accommodations were made, and people don't necessarily want to come back from them. There's some that you have to come back from. Obviously, you can't just get you have to go back to work. We need the economy to move. But then there are some accommodations that are stupid. In some ways, for some businesses, people started to do things on the internet, like through Zoom meetings, which is actually less expensive for the company to operate with. And some people are working from home. You could look at video game industries like Blizzard. Took a pretty big hit because they were like, we want you to come back and work in the office, even though these people were doing really quality work from home. And people just left. It's going to depend on the industry or the market, of course. But yeah,
they definitely pull back on productivity. They have been paid a lot to do not too much in the last few years, and we need to see that change. We need to see unemployment rise. Unemployment has to jump 40-50%, in my view. Nice. We need to see pain in the economy. We need to remind people that they work for the employer.
Just to be clear, my understanding, and I'm not super educated on economics, is that unemployment, there's a range on unemployment that's healthy for the economy. Theoretically, and again, I'm not super educated on this. Theoretically, you don't want unemployment to be like 0, right? But to say that we need to increase unemployment in order to simulate some kind of a response to I don't know, and motivate people, that just seems like a gross thing. So Zero unemployment is not desirable for the country because it means that there is no growth of economic growth. The industries will not be able to expand existing businesses, and people would have no scope to change their jobs in an economy which is trying to grow. Okay, so I guess you need some kind of like excess labor capital, we'll call it, people. So a little bit beyond me, but okay.
The other way around. I mean, there's been a systematic change where employees feel the employer is extremely lucky to have them, as opposed to the other way around. So it's
that's how you advocate for yourself. Hey, my employee needs me. I get more money because of it. There's nothing wrong with that.
Has to change. We've got to kill that attitude, and that has to come through hurting the economy, which is what the whole global, the world is trying to do. The governments around the world are trying to increase unemployment to get that to some sort of normality. And we're seeing it. I think every employer now is seeing it. I mean, there is definitely massive layoffs going off. People might not be talking about it, but people are definitely laying people off, and we're starting to see less arrogance in the employment market, and that has to continue because that will cascade across the cost balance.
Can you imagine actually like going out and saying this? I mean, what?
No.
So, you know what I just saw?
What a
This
fuck.
guy is the guy that started the whole avocado toast thing.
How do you,
dude.
hold on.
Which
How do
is
you
what is
claim
that?
Huh?
How do you claim that? That's like claiming burritos.
No. I'm sorry. He didn't say that he invented it.
Most estimates say that unemployment will have to reach as high as 7.5%, more than double its current level, to get inflation down to the Fed's target of 2%. Some of this stuff is like beyond me. The government might be trying to increase unemployment. Some of this stuff is just like a little beyond me. I don't quite understand everything that's being said here. I'm not sure if I'm not sure if he's being a dick or if he's actually having a legitimate conversation about like the way that things need to work from an economic perspective. Like that's my biggest problem.
Example.
Quickly.
That's my biggest issue because I don't understand it. But okay.
Avocado toast. You remember there was a controversy, the whole meme of like, well, millennials should
Oh,
just
that
stop
was
buying.
him.
Yeah,
Oh, I
he started
see.
that whole.
Stop with all the.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah.
He really hates
Ah.
poor people.
This is what I'm saying.
God.
He like.
Here he is.
Oh wow.
wow.
Yeah,
Hey,
this
wait,
is
full
him.
screen that. Full screen that.
That's crazy.
Oh,
We are coming into a new reality where first-home buyers, second-home buyers, and a lot of people won't own a house in their lifetime. That is just the reality of where we're going.
So you think that young people have now got the prospect of never owning a home?
Absolutely. When you
Well, yeah, because you have big businesses buying up houses, buying up properties, and then doing shit remodels and then renting it out. There's only so much housing that we can have. And then housing needs to be concentrated around jobs so that it's accessible. And so when big businesses are buying them out and they're renting up that space and then they're flipping those, like they're doing shit bare minimum rebuilds and either selling those houses at a ridiculously high amount or they're renting them out. Like, yeah, people are like, we're not going to be able to own a home, especially with Airbnb. People don't understand this, but it can be profitable in some areas to buy up a house and then rent it out on the weekends as an Airbnb. It can be more profitable to do that, excuse me, than it is to actually sell the house. And so people will buy up Airbnbs and then there's just a bunch of, it's just dead space. People just can't live. They just can't live in those fucking spaces. I think New York implemented something that would just like make you not really be able to do that, which is a good thing. You need to figure that out because that's fucking crazy. You know, and so it makes sense for young people. On the other hand, are there people that spend their money poorly? Probably. I mean, we live in a time of consumerism where there's constant information on the TikTok, YouTube, television of saying buy. And some people, yeah, of course, some people are making irresponsible decisions as well. But the reality is that it's impossible to have like a fucking house now. It's very difficult.
you're spending
Like, here's the thing. You'll buy a home and then you'll sell it 50 years later for like 10 times the price. And that doesn't make any sense to me. You bought something and you left it in a generally probably a worse condition. Like the houses get old, they get run down, the infrastructure starts to degrade, but somehow you could sell it for more money. It is a very bizarre. It's the only thing, as my understanding, the only thing that you can ever buy that increases in value is a fucking house. And it's cool on the one hand because you get a big payoff on your investment. But for everybody that's coming into the market, that fucks you over.
Jordan Goral became a member.
Thank you so much for the small gut. I appreciate that.
$40 a day on smashed avocado and coffees and not working. Yeah, of course.
Oh, that was it, I guess. Yeah. Spending all your money on smashed avocado.
A day on smashed avocado and coffees and not working. Yeah, of course.
dude, you fuck.
Absolutely.
This guy
When I have-
sucks.
He really sucks.
I'm also seeing that he is one of these weirdos that wants to be immortal.
Oh god, that's another dude I haven't talked about. The immortal
Yeah,
Instagram
yeah.
guy. I'm obsessed with him.
This guy, he gets receives magnesium infusion. His well-being established.
Bro, you literally look like you're doing a demonic ritual. What are you doing? Look at that with all the candles. I hate you. I actually hate you.
I mean, I can say from our experience that he's completely wrong.
It's interesting because one of the things that people will say about universal basic income is that, like, well, landlords will just raise the price. That's probably the biggest criticism people have of like a UBI if more people had more money in their pockets. And my response is like, why? So like, yeah, if people got $1,000 a month, what's stopping landlords from increasing the prices by $500 a month? I mean, that should just be treasonous, no? Like, that's insane. And it's because some markets can work themselves out. It depends on where you are. If you have a relatively financially robust area, let's just use fast food, where there's a McDonald's, a Burger King, and Taco Bell. They have to compete with each other, so it's less likely for them to try to like price gouge and like fuck people out of their money because they're trying to compete with other people. Housing market is different. There's really not a lot of competition in the housing market for the most part. Because again, it's not you have to find a place to live. It needs to be in an area that's accessible to a job. It's not like this thing where you can shop around too much, especially if you're a young person with not a lot of money. So you get like sellers get huge sellers or renters. They get like so much power in this. And it's, again, I could see why people talk about like, maybe you shouldn't be able to be a landlord, or maybe there should be like deep government restrictions or something, because you could really fuck people out of the ability to live.
It's not the case about like productivity going down because of COVID and people not wanting to work and all this stuff. Is wrong.
No, it's partially true. Like, let's not say it's all wrong. Like, some productivity can go down. I think it's more in like lower skilled labor jobs. It can be a little more difficult to find people. Some people have kind of like adjusted and figured out how to get away with not working. But then at the same time, a lot of these businesses have figured out how to automate the jobs away and pay people as little as possible. So,
well, if your business model is reliant on exploiting workers, then it is going to affect your bottom line.
Yeah.
If you're McDonald's, if you're Walmart, if you're, you know.
I mean, in a way, we've learned that a business can be more accommodating to people and still work. Like today, some people might come for an interview and they'll ask for I forget what's the word, but like a position where they can work twice.
Does your position allow for my time blindness? Because sometimes I'm fucking late and it's part of my ADHD.
A week in the office and then work from home the rest of the week.
Yeah, the problem with the hybrid stuff is I think it's a phenomenal idea to make work as easy as possible. That's the point of technology. I'm a fat fuck that like watches videos for a living and does commentary. You know, it doesn't work in all jobs. Something like a McDonald's, like you can't really, you know, you could do a part-time thing where you only, like for instance, people talk about like the 4-day work week. But it's not necessarily as accessible to you as it is to somebody else who works at an office job that can do the jobs when they get home. It's just that there is a variance in the accessibility of doing a hybrid. You know, you can't really do a hybrid McDonald's job. But
stuff like that, where I think it was educational for everybody on both sides. And
what are you trying to say, Dan?
His forehead is huge.
Yeah, dude.
It's like crazy,
It's
right?
a good hairline. But
And like,
that
if you
haircut
follow like
doesn't
where
help.
his head actually, like the head is massive.
A lot of real estate.
That's his
awesome.
business.
I guess
I mean,
maybe we should listen. He's probably pretty smart with that big, right?
That 5 head.
That's so sick, dude.
That's just
That
very
eight head.
hollow.
But like, I fundamentally disagree with his theory that we must exploit workers for. It's like, dude, when workers
like if anything,
make more money and are better off and have healthcare and have
Right.
access to shelter, affordable shelter and food, guess what? Society is more stable and going to have more longevity for everybody.
True.
When your philosophy is let's exploit every single worker to the max, it's
again, like some of the things that he was saying, I might be a little beyond me. He might not have necessarily been saying we should absolutely actively exploit these people. He might have just been having a conversation about like the way that unemployment interacts with the government and shit that like is a little beyond me. I'm not an economic physicist.
only a matter of time before your head ends on a pike, brother. And it
True.
is coming someday if you keep doing this. You
Well, Ethan, I mean, it would happen to you too, no? Thank you so much for the 5 months sub, Small God from Apocalypse. Pingle Whirl for president. Yes, that is my character's name, Pingle Whirl. I'm on the server White Meat Horde.
will die.
it's so
Maybe
dumb.
not. He's
It's
gonna live
stupid
forever.
on so many levels.
You know what? Can I just say something else? All these rich people who are trying to live forever are the worst. They're the last people we want living forever.
True.
You know what I mean?
That's true.
Sorry, go ahead.
But it's just like, if anything, I think it became better for everybody. Like employees know better, they know what they want and what works for them and what to ask for now, and employers can accommodate that, and then the employee can feel appreciated and feel like they care about the job and actually do a better job because they still have free time to do what they need. They can go do their personal errands. Like it's a more
Like jerking off.
I don't know. It's a better approach for everybody, actually. What happened since COVID?
In almost
Your
all
wiener off.
office jobs where people have to go to a specific place to work, there's no reason for them to be in that location 50% or even more of the time. Like literally, it's just a quality of life increase for them.
I don't know if that's true. They definitely have done studies like that have shown that a reduced work, well, that's a reduced work week. Listen, I wouldn't doubt that people can pull out more productivity. I personally think that there's still a positive to having people come to an office just from a morale perspective. It's one of those things where, like, let's say you worked an office job where you were doing whatever. Part of meeting people at the office gives you the ability to have a little bit more humanity in your job. It makes it more real. It makes the people you work with more real. It humanizes the situation. I personally don't think that there's necessarily anything wrong. Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with having office mandatory days. I think it's a good idea to stay in the office a couple times. In general, it's not just about productivity. Let people come in, let them talk, socialize, get to know their partners, the people that they see how well each other works together. I think that there's still a benefit to having some days in the office. You know what I mean? I don't think that you should all and some people don't work well for themselves. That's also another part. We're instantly assuming everybody does really good when it comes to being self-managed. Not true. I don't know what the statistic is. I'd argue most people don't do very well doing that. I'm not saying that people, don't let people work from home, but some people aren't going to be capable of doing that always and keeping themselves up to date on getting everything done that they need to get done. Some people are just ineffective when it comes to stuff like this. It's just a reality of the situation, right? And I think that also needs to be accounted for. It's more than just one little thing.
That costs nothing. And apparently to people like this, the worker's suffering is part of what he expects to get from the salary he pays them. He feeds off of it. What a piece of shit, dude. I hate this guy.
Yeah,
how are you even going to say that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
How much more
I know that I'm a capitalist.
Okay, based.
And so I've been trying to think, how do you square that with my other, socialist ideas?
What do you mean? How do you square that? You just this is the thing. I'm a capitalist until we notice a problem, and then we need to use some kind of socialist or whatever government regulation to accommodate the situation. It's very simple. We see that there's an issue with healthcare. We should deal with healthcare. We see that there's an issue with automation displacing jobs and driving down wages. We should do some kind of a UBI. Very simple solution. I wouldn't even necessarily call myself a capitalist. I believe in a capitalist concept of being able to work harder for money and stuff. There still should be an incentive to working hard. But that's how you would parse with that.
And I think there is. I think that if there isn't, there should be a thing, and it's a little bit of an oxymoron. It sounds silly, but I do think it's a real. It can be and is a real thing. Benevolent capitalism. Does that sound silly?
It's called being a social democrat.
So okay. So what I think is if you like the idea of capitalism, then you need to also accept the inevitable downsides.
So benevolent capitalism is just focusing on things that have a positive impact, doing it something that would make capitalism have a positive impact on the world. Okay, sure, I guess. Yeah, I guess. But I don't know if I call it benevolent. I would just say we need some social reform
of capitalism. If how you live is dependent on you working, right?
Okay.
Then you need to guarantee people jobs. It doesn't make sense. So because without that, then you're basically saying, yeah, just as a consequence of this, some people are going to be homeless and destitute.
Okay.
And so that's unacceptable, right? I mean, that's psycho.
Is he saying that he supports job programs? I'm not against job programs. Again, here's the thing. When I talk about UBI, that's a conservative approach to the problems. It's giving people money so that they can handle their own shit, and I believe in that ability to do so. It's less micromanagement from the bigger system, and it still redistributes wealth in a pretty reasonable way. I'm not necessarily in favor of forced jobs for everybody, but some kind of a distribution system, sure, And then also as time goes on and technology displaces jobs and drives down rate, we're going to have a fewer demand for jobs. And, that extra money from some kind of a UBI would give people the ability to find meaning in their life that may not be tied to a job. Because sometimes it might not be tied to a job. As we're moving forward, there's going to be fewer and fewer opportunities available. Holy shit, dude. You got to... Jesus, dude. Why do you have so much money? What are you, a billionaire?
Funny super chatted $100. Love you, Papa. Have a good stream.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You really don't have to keep donating to me. You've donated $400 to me already. I really do appreciate it, but please do not donate this much money to me if you don't have it.
Funny super chatted $50. Before I go, I got to ask, can you hit the gritty?
Okay, let's see this quick tutorial.
Hold on. I forgot the last step.
I don't normally do things for money, okay, but I feel like I have to. It's like a lot of money. How do I do it? How do I do it? So, is it like that? Is that like, was that like an anime run? Like, am I doing a gritty right now? Like, it seems like, it kind of seems like a gritty is like, it's like black people appropriating the anime run. You know what I mean? It's interesting. I think I did it though. Thank you so much for the donation. That's $250 today, man. That's crazy. I hope that you're like a fucking multi-millionaire.
Funny super chatted $100. Let's go.
Well, thank you again. It's very generous of you. I appreciate the insanely generous donation. I really do. I'm gonna get back to the segment. Oh, Lord.
And so, like, I think the government should have guaranteed jobs for people that want to work.
Maybe.
You know, that pay enough for the minimum amount needed to have shelter.
Like I said, I'm more of like a UBI guy and kind of let that money do the work for it. I don't believe in like hyper micromanagement. I don't think it's like a horrible idea, but I would rather go in the direction of, instead of forcing jobs for particular things, we're better off giving people UBI money enough to put into different communities that will bolster and empower those communities, give people a subsidized wage so that they can perform minimum wage jobs and still have a solid, really high quality of life, allow people to open up new businesses and take that risk and get an actual wage, which is something that small businesses struggle with. So,
food. I think shelter should be guaranteed. I think food should be guaranteed.
Sure.
Because, again, we want the capitalist society and all the good things that...
This is like literally just not capitalism. Like the way that I'm talking about UBI, that's I would argue that's more capitalism. This sounds like an actual kind of... But whatever.
But that benefits us. I do like the system of capitalism. I think it's good. But so we want all the good things. But at the same time, it does, if it's unchecked, it makes society, the distribution of wealth and like the stability of society goes totally off keel. And if you need a job to provide food and shelter, then again, that's the capitalism, right? So you have to guarantee those things. So I think work, food, and shelter should be guaranteed rights of people living in capitalism.
And education.
And
healthcare.
Right, and healthcare should be too, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, those are even like the three most basic, but healthcare, should be, and education should be too, you're right. And it makes sense to me, because you want to exist in this world where it's all about money. It's all about market forces and all this shit. So you can't just regulate on the top. You have to regulate on the bottom too, to control for the outcome.
Okay.
So
yeah, you are everything you just described is almost social democrat to a T. I mean, this is what think like FDR Democrat.
I love his second Bill of Rights.
Yeah, Democrats pre 1970s is everything that you're describing.
Dude,
at least ideologically. They didn't always live up to all those things, but that was the kind of prevailing wisdom at the time.
The second Bill of Rights would have been the greatest thing to happen to this country, man. That's crazy. Ethan, describe one good thing about capitalism. First of all, I think it's like...
I mean, the one good thing about capitalism, generally speaking, is that it does breed innovation. It gives people the ability to take just raw resources, which is money, and turn that into whatever they want. Right? That's how you get a lot of innovation. That doesn't mean that there aren't government subsidies for some things, but that is an aspect of it. It gives people a desire to work harder for more money. I've never really heard anybody flesh out a true communist, thing. But giving people the tools to be able to kind of make their own decisions is part of that, right? When he was talking about job programs, people who want it, I'm not against jobs, but I don't think that we should forcefully create jobs that we don't necessarily need. It would be, in my opinion, less expensive and smarter to just give people the raw money for some kind of an infrastructure thing. The UBI wouldn't be enough to live on, so you still have to work. Other people can open up a business. There's a lot of different aspects to it. But yeah, that breeding of innovation, that working harder to try to make more money. Yes, I understand that nepotism does exist, and obviously, but still working harder will generally mean that you will perform better. Capitalism, we live in a capitalist structure that is done very well because of that. We should that's the thing. It's not all bad, but it can be bad in different ways. Sure.
The natural inclination of some people, I don't think it's even realistic to say I want to live in like a perfect.
Because the reality is that there's going to be people who are either smarter or work harder that should get valued more for their contributions than other people. That doesn't mean those other people shouldn't be able to live. But in my opinion, like there should be some kind of like an understanding of that. You know, if you are able to supply more to sort of society, you should be valued more. You know, but other people should still be able to live. Right?
Communistic society, because that just doesn't work. It's antithetical to human nature. But I do think there are good things of capitalism provides, which is I do think there's a sense of innovation that happens when people are motivated by money and pushed to do certain ideas and to invest in certain ideas that like the government isn't doing. I don't hate the idea of like people who can be successful. I think it's good that people can achieve success in the term monetary success. I mean, that's what that means, right? I do.
Listen, without capitalism, we would have never gotten the Snuggie. So think about that, liberal.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's good. I think it's good.
He's about to get trashed by his audience because he decided to suck on the Hassan titties. So now he's got a bunch of like little kids that don't understand the world that are like really entitled and grew up with like a literal no struggle. Go like, oh, you think capitalism is good? You fucking idiot.
Good. Right. It encourages efficient production. Right. I mean, if there's a money incentive, like if everything was owned by the government, it would remove a lot of efficiency, perhaps, when people aren't motivated by money and stuff. But this is all silly.
The idea is that like if it's run by the government, there's no competition anymore, and the competition will sometimes breed efficiency, which can be true. We talked about before. I don't know if I think it was a segment. It definitely was, where we talked about having like 3 different fast food industries that them competing with each other holds them to higher standards. They have to hold each other to high standards. If you had like a one government run fast food industry, there's no competition. It's just the government, right? So like, yeah, you can get a positive out of that as well. I agree with that for sure. That would be why you would talk about that. Not in every industry. Like when it comes to housing, it's a little different because there's only so much housing. But there are areas where like, yeah, I think there should be capitalism led.
It all sounds very vapid and, when you describe it, because capitalism is inherently, it seems like, based on hedonism, right? It doesn't come from like an altruistic place. So that's why the important part is to make sure that there is altruism and humanity that is kept in this, rat race, which is capitalism.
Yeah, I like rats. They're cool.
That's it.
That's my overall opinion on Ethan. He seems like a decent guy. Yeah, it's fine.
The second Bill of Rights, FDR tried to pass, and he was close too, man. The right of every family to a decent home, the right to adequate medical care, and the opportunity to achieve and enjoy good health, the right to adequate protection from economic fears of old age, sickness, accident, and unemployment, the right to a good education. He was going to draft the second Bill of Rights.
You want a Biden burger with cheese. I agree. Yeah, fuck it. Communism, my fast food up, baby.
It was close. It was really close to passing.
Give me a Biden burger with some ice cream, baby.
He was on some king shit, wasn't he?
King shit? Holy shit. Ethan, what the fuck? I'm just kidding.
There you go. I don't know what the fuck you want from me. I think that capitalism is a more realistic system of governance than like fucking communism is, Communism never works because people are inherently corrupt, and
that's true.
Whoever's in charge is they're gonna be greedy, they're gonna be corrupt, they're gonna fuck everything.
Yeah, we're seeing that in capitalism, right? And that would happen in communism as well. And so that's why there should be a good balance between like government and private business. Like I agree with what he's saying. Sure.
It doesn't make sense to me that system could work. Where everybody just acts in good faith and does the right thing.
Yeah, and so far it hasn't. Right. And a lot of people will say, well, yes, because capitalist countries undermine them. Sure, but then you start getting, this is where you start getting into deep arguments. Like, okay, so if a capitalistic system can go in and have some profound impact on a communist system, let's be honest here. Clearly, that communist system is too weak to be able to sustain itself. And I know that sounds really shitty and harsh, but if they don't have the military power to be able to sustain themselves, then is it really? I mean, it's not a realistic, act of governance. But mostly, like, yeah, I think that there needs to be some kind of checks and balances to make sure people stay in line with not being, corrupt scumbags. And capitalism will lead to corruption. Communism will as well. So we need to have like a middle ground there.
So as long as there's no like mega losers in capitalism, if that's something we can
I agree with
regulate, then I do believe that it can be a benevolent thing. Yeah, capitalism breeds greed. Exactly. And, they say greed is good. And there is some truth to that in measure, right? It's
Yeah, true. So there's the level of selfishness that needs to exist. Greed can be good in moderate amounts, you know? Like, let's say you have $20 left and you need to, like, eat a meal and you don't have anything at home and you walk around, someone says, hey, can I please have, like, $20? And you're like, yeah, sure. And you give it to them. Now you don't eat for the rest of, like, whatever period of time. You need to be a little bit greedy sometimes. There just needs to be a regulation on how greedy you should and shouldn't be.
You know, it's an inherent quality of man, and it can sometimes drive innovation, efficiency, all this kinds of stuff, you know? You think that because you benefit from it, Ethan? Obviously. Yeah. Yes.
I love that. Honest. Yeah. Of course. Me too. I'm a smart guy. I probably do well regardless, not to jerk myself off. All my audience is very smart as well. That's why they watch me. So, yeah, there's nothing wrong with admitting that. But that's the thing, you know, like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, yeah, he's benefits from the system and he benefits the system. What's the problem with that?
Well, his opinion is obviously going to be his opinion based on his experience.
But I feel like that's always been my opinion, frankly.
Yeah, that is. I mean,
I'm just saying the fact
he's been pretty consistent with, like, being for capitalism, like from what I've seen from him. So he's pretty on the nose, like, not in a bad way.
It benefits you. It's obvious that it's gonna affect your opinion. It is your opinion.
It just seems like this fucking, like, socialist, communist.
Oh, Eden's getting based.
Idea that people want is, like, just a pipe dream.
What is the idea that people want?
The problem with the communism idea is nobody knows what the fuck they want. I've talked to a lot of communists, and you'll ask them basic questions like, hey, how would currency work? And they're like, well, that depends on how the society wants it to work. And it's like, I can't do anything with that. You have an idea of what you want. No, the society would choose how they want it. It's like, I can't work with society will magically come up with the solution, because we need to have a plan moving forward. If you want it to work, you have to give me, like, an ideal version of what communism can work. And maybe it will, maybe it could. But nobody really seems to come together and go, like, you know what we could do? Free Among Us, you know, that'd be fucking cool. So there's kind of a glaring issue when it comes to that. People don't seem to be super, on with actually telling us some solutions that we could implement. So that's where one of the problems comes in as well.
I'm kind of curious because I see so many people in the chat saying no.
I don't know what y'all are tripping about. Like, what the fuck do you want?
What is the idea that
are you
people
guys, like,
are looking for?
I don't know.
To hear.
I actually don't know. Like, it's almost like weird virtue signaling to be like, I'm living in modern day America, but
Bro, Ethan's like a fucking consuming Destiny fucking content. Like, it's nobody's business. I feel like it's.
I want a full communist revolution. I don't know what the fuck.
I want.
I'll take on humanity, dude. You guys are.
Dan, do you know? Because you know everything.
Yeah, I don't really.
Yeah, Dan, are you going to glaze Ethan or the audience?
Really want to get into this right now?
I don't mind.
It's so funny how this is such a benign topic. Like, Ethan's take is we should have universal health care, universal housing, universal job access. This is like a super, super fucking progressive take, and it's still not, it's more progressive than me. And it's like, and it's still not enough for his audience to shit and fucking cum themselves and have a temper tantrum. It's not enough that he said that housing should be government run and that, like, a lot of different, like, housing, healthcare should all be government run. It's not enough. It's not enough for him or them. It needs to be like all or nothing. And it's mostly little kids that don't work. It's always privileged kids who complain and want communism. I don't want to work hard. That's honestly. It's fucking annoying.
I'm actually curious
right now. So.
Okay, that's
they
fine.
think that, like,
I'm actually curious because, like, it seems like majority of the chat is disagreeing, and so
well, we have a very left-leaning audience here on the H3 podcast.
Yeah, you have a bunch of fucking babies on the audience there. You guys decided that you wanted to dip your fucking wick into that audience, and so now you have to act like an adult and tell them to fuck off.
Zed King super chatted $5. I wouldn't say greed is necessary.
Oh, it is.
Selfishness is not greed because that's an excessive type of selfishness that is detrimental to people.
All right, now we're playing semantics. Intense. Okay, so you're okay. Sure, fine. Fuck off. I'm just kidding. Sure, greed is an excessive selfishness. Okay, sure. Okay, sure. We're fucking playing. We're playing the semantic game today. Thank you for helping me clarify. Thank you for giving me $5 to do it. Sure, we don't need greed necessarily, but everybody's a little selfish, and a little bit of selfishness is not a bad thing.
And And I'm sure plenty of people agree with you. I'm sure, but I mean, obviously,
I think we are left-leaning too.
Anti-capitalists are going to speak up when you're giving an impassioned defense of it.
Dumb people,
but
dumb
I'd
babies.
say it's impassionate, but I do defend. I am a capitalist. What do you want? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I
pretty
think
much,
it's. But the thing is, like, they think that, like,
I'm telling you though, like most of the people complaining, that's not everybody. Like most people, they're complaining in the chat. That doesn't reflect everybody. Like there's videos that have like a ton of comments from me like, you're a piece of shit, and like I still have like really still solid like ratios. People are just less likely to speak up because they know it's an annoying topic and they don't feel like arguing with little babies on the internet about fucking capitalism. It's just fucking dumb and cringe.
should share in the
yeah, that's the fundamental difference is that
workers should get a percent of your earnings, essentially, a percentage of their production.
I don't care.
You know, I don't agree with that. I don't think. I mean, in some cases it's true, but I think
no, I don't either. I was like, whatever. I don't care. I didn't engage with that. Like I said, a UBI baby.
Well, you do have an obligation to make sure your employees are well provided for. You know what I mean?
And then the government has an obligation to subtract taxes from people who make a lot of money so that they can use that money to redistribute into the bottom and middle.
Like, that's for sure. Suck it, chat. You're watching a capitalist pig. Deal with it.
Okay.
I don't know what the fuck. You guys are all like radical communists? There's that many radical communists?
they're not radical.
Bro, just move on, Ethan. Oh my god.
Communists. Not everybody that's anti-capitalist is a communist.
It is kind of a radical take that being like full anti-capitalist.
Yes.
I mean, you're essentially advocating to change the entire structure of all societies today on Earth. That's not radical?
That is very radical. That
Is there
definitely-
anywhere in the world that is doing that?
No.
Not really. China's apparently communist, but it's not really.
It's not.
It's not. The people couldn't do whatever they wanted
North
during
Korea's
COVID.
communist. Well, not really.
Yeah, that's not really.
Yeah. Russia is, well, what? I don't know what Russia is. No, not really. I don't think there is. I don't think.
Well, this is one of the things. Like, see, communists has never been done the right way. That's one of the talking points from like other communists. It's like, it's never been done the right way. So how do we know if it doesn't work? The fact that we've tried to get there and it doesn't work shows us that it cannot be done. Right? Like, that's the fucking problem. People are just not nice enough to be communists. And again, I think that there needs to be an incentive. There needs to be an incentive that pushes people who are more beneficial to society at the top, while still maintaining people who may not be as beneficial to society towards like the bottom. There's nothing wrong with that. But like that bottom shouldn't be like a pit. You should they should still have the ability to live well and have opportunity to advance in the society based on the needs of that society.
There really is. But how is being anti-capitalist not radical? Just in theory, because
because the United States isn't the whole world, dude. Like,
what country is not?
I mean, I'm from Israel, but it's pretty much the same thing.
Anti-capitalist, socialist political parties. Some of them in power at times. Some of them, it's definitely
they're capitalist countries, bro.
Yeah.
Name one European country that isn't a capitalist country.
No, yeah, you're right. They're all capitalist countries.
Okay.
Okay.
You know, there's plenty to criticize for modern capitalism. Lots. It's not working in its current form. It's just totally broken in its current form. Like this late stage capitalism that, like the subreddit, like it's very poignant, I believe, with the late stage capitalism. You know, it's not working for sure. But like, name one. You know, social democracies do great in Europe.
Yeah.
Sweden, for example.
Yeah, I'm because you're explaining Sweden pretty much, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like a capitalistic country with insanely high social benefits and security.
That's what
system.
I would like to see.
That's what I've lived in my whole life, and I'm curious what these people have to criticize. I mean, there's a lot of.
Ask Dan. You have a radical communist right next to you.
I actually don't know what the criticism is for Sweden.
Bro, I fucking do not like Dan. And listen, I just don't feel he's a particularly genuine person. Like, he bothers me, right? Like, I can appreciate Ethan because he seems to be trying to be a genuine person every time you see him. Like, right now, he's actively disagreeing with his audience. You know, it's just something that maybe he hasn't necessarily done all the time in the past. And so, like, I'm all for it, baby. I'm eating it up. Do it, baby. Eat it up. But Dan just bothers me.
This economy. So
that's
I'm
exactly
also
what I
for-
would love to see. Like, that's what I don't understand why everybody is like that.
And I'm sure there are. I'm not saying there isn't. I'm genuinely curious. I don't know.
I think that
I think that a lot of young people see that capitalism, whether you think it has brought a lot of improvements to people's lives, is a system that is killing the planet. And
Yeah, it's flawed. Okay.
And
They're seeing this system that's flawed, so they want to throw it all away instead of fixing it. Yeah, that's not smart. That's silly.
especially in the last 30 to 40 years, most people, I think, at least I can really only speak, I'm just going to speak on the United States because that's my experience and what I've been around, is like you said, you were just talking about that subreddit that's kind of all centered around it. I feel like people see the decline happening and they're fundamentally unhappy with the way that we have arranged our society. And to act like it was eternal.
So yeah, and it's always the young people who don't fucking vote. So like, I'm not to be an asshole, fucking cry about it. Like, go vote, asshole. Like, go vote. Stop being lazy. Like, yeah, for sure. The problem is, first of all, one of the problems is this constant information that's drilled into your head, so you think things are worse than they are. Right? That's number one. Number two, there are issues here, but there's no like reasonable solutions. Right? Not from a lot of the progressives. Well, actually, from a lot of progressives, for sure there are. But like these young people that are crying communism, it's not a reasonable solution. Like, I don't really know what else to tell you. It just like is what it. I don't know what else to. I don't know what else to tell you. It's not a. It's not necessarily a reasonable solution. Just get your shit together. You know.
And was always like this is kind of naive. I mean, capitalism. Well, because capitalism is something that has only existed for about 200 years in like the form that we know it.
I didn't say it's always been like this.
Right, but I'm just saying that like, do you
government.
think that we have figured it out? That we've found the best system of organizing society?
I think
no, Dan. Literally, he's talking about what he would want to do to improve it. Does like what's the point of this guy talking? I don't understand. Oh, so you think that we figured it out? No, he's literally saying that he wants changes. What you're saying, it doesn't work. What you're saying isn't a real thing. You just completely mistook the actual argument going on. So that's an incredible feat from Daniel here.
I think that, you know,
we're at the end of history.
I think part of it you have to
he doesn't
tangle
obviously.
with is what's realistic. Like, what's a realistic way for people to form?
I feel like if we're talking about America,
what is realistic about a society that, I mean, we live in Los Angeles.
What's realistic about a society that like nobody, like everybody makes the same amount of money and like they just have jobs assigned to them and there's like no actual structure of anything because like nobody can fucking define how they think a capitalist or communist society would work. Everybody would hold hands and make the same money. A doctor would make the same money as a fucking burger flipper. Why? They shouldn't. I'm not trying to be an asshole. I respect people who flip burgers, but you're not doing anything even close to the skilled as like a fucking doctor. And nobody comes up with nobody tells me what the system is. They just make it vague. Like, oh, we should do communism because there's nothing there. It's like a fucking poop in the butt. Give me a system, right? These are the problems, and they're never addressed. Like, what's the pay scale like? How do you value people like doctors at a higher value like people like a fucking like something else? You don't. Like, I've never it's like a reasonable solution has never been proposed. It's because it's not fleshed out. It's just fucking virtue signaling about how communism is bad, and it's pushed by a fucking moron named Hassan because he doesn't know what he's talking about. Like and either way, they still point to like Sweden as their system anyway. So like, why are we even having this discussion? It's just completely dumb and unproductive. It doesn't seem like it's fucking valuable at all.
Thousands of homeless people starving on the street in our neighborhood.
Sure. I'm not advocating for that.
Right, but I'm saying that people see the flaws in the system that we currently have, and so that
I see them too.
And there's a lot of, this is the thing, you're saying like everybody's a radical communist. That's not necessarily the case. Being anti-capitalist doesn't equate that. It just is somebody that has landed on the side of the coin that they think that the system that we have, that capitalism is not working. And there's a
Ethan's on that same side of the coin though. So okay.
Huge variety of people ways that people go from that. Well, and some people, I mean, most Republicans, and I would say even a lot of Democrats would say what you just described, that social democrat kind of point of view.
They're not.
Would say that you are anti-capitalist with that point of view.
Then fine, then I accept that.
Right.
I mean, say whatever the fuck you want.
And social democrats are very often seen as kind of.
So we're crying about the semantics now? Like, who fucking cares, dude? Holy shit.
Like, right on the fence between the what people call the left and the right.
So I'm walking the middle path, like Buddha himself.
Right, you're taking the middle path.
Don't you feel, though, that here in America, like, people can't even afford healthcare or education? So, like, isn't a social democracy a first step that we should all try to get to?
Yeah, a lot of people feel that
before
way.
like trying to get to like I want shares in every business I work.
That would be what you would do if you ever wanted to get to a communist society. You'd have to get to like a more democratically social society first, unless you're trying to engage in like a system shock, and in which case we're all fucked. Like, you cannot topple the government tomorrow and expect a positive interaction with that.
He's here, yeah.
So 100%. I think that
it's like for us, we're mostly talking about like what we see as realistic. Like, what's the first step that we should at least try to get, like the bare minimum. I've been here 7 years. I'm still shocked about healthcare. Like it shocks me every single time I deal with it.
It is shocking.
I paid $200 just to get a blood test. Like it's insane. It's insane.
True.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
so to me,
you probably don't because you have insurance. But yeah, it does cost money to get the fuck. I gotta pay a couple of doctor's bills. You know, we pay $600 a month for our health insurance, which is fucking egregious. And then I went and I got my cum tested for fertility, and that's $122. And then my wife got a dye test, which is $120.
Jardo Dog super chatted $5.
Incredible.
At the same time, it's wacky doctors make so much money, but teachers and social workers make diddly.
Absolutely.
Also, diarrhea.
Incredible. Absolutely. And it's interesting because like one of the reasons doctors make so much money is because school is so expensive. And so if school was less expensive, naturally it would be, you see how everything kind of comes together. And I'm not saying do completely free schooling, but there needs to be some kind of a regulation on schooling to reduce the fucking cost of it in some capacity. So
it's like, yeah, we can talk like philosophical and we can talk all kinds of things, but I feel like what's actually going to happen? What's something that would be a first step to improve?
yeah, some kind of healthcare.
Well, I mean, there's a variety of opinions.
Probably like a public and a private healthcare like option. So private make the healthcare public, and have a private option for people who want like better. Make a status quo for everybody, and then make a private option that subsidizes it.
On that, and you know, a lot of people would say that it does need to be an incremental thing, and we need to work towards that.
What do you think, Dan? Why is he being such a he's being so like scatter-voiced about this? Like he's just like trembling in his voice.
I mean, even people who describe themselves as communists say that, because again, like the USSR, for example, which is the most famous example of like a big country, a big superpower level country that people consider communist, right? Within their own framework, they never thought that they were communist. They thought they were taking steps towards communism, and in a variety of different ways. And so it's just about like that's an ideal. That's like an end goal that people who would self-describe as communists are. Now, what I would say a radical communist is somebody that wants a violent revolution to overthrow the government and take over and implement that system as closely as possible now, which is something that has happened in a variety of places to varying degrees of atrocities that fell out of that.
When you say you're an anti-capitalist, though, does that mean that you are critical of capitalism?
You
which
might
I
be
am.
too.
I mean,
I think you say you're a capitalist, but it's a lot more
because
to be fair, he's talking back to his boss now. I don't think that that's fair at all. Like, first of all, he should be able to say whatever he wants. Dan constantly talks back to Ethan. When you say to be fair, he's talking back to his voice. He's constantly talking back to Ethan. This isn't like a new thing that he's super scaredy catted about. The dude's always talking back to his boss. And again, that's the flow. That's not even a bad thing. But that's like the flow. That's what's supposed to happen. Like that's encouraged. Ethan doesn't like create a space where he's not allowed to speak back. So that's not an enemy, to be fair, at all. They're comfortable with each other. So that's not an argument at all, in my opinion. That's not even an argument at all. I think Dan is afraid. I think he's just scared of the topic. I don't think that he knows too much about the conversation. Maybe I'm just being rude about that. But I think part of it's afraid of the audience that's being super, or I don't know, fucking insane or something. I don't know.
I'm not against the idea of capitalism. I think it's a good system with the correct
with a lot of corrections.
Because when you say you're anti-capitalist, it sounds like you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, you don't believe in capitalism as a governing
what it comes down to me too is when you threw out that line from
you need to ask specifically about how you think interaction should work when it comes to working jobs. That's what you have to talk about. How do people get paid? How would these things happen, et cetera, et cetera?
Glenn Ross about greed being good or whatever. I
don't think that's not from that. That's like a isn't that like a that's like a
Glenn Ross.
I don't think that's a
greed is good as a cheat code in Warcraft 3. So gives you lots of money. I think it's like 500 gold in lumber. Just letting you know.
First time that was written.
Well,
go ahead. Anyway, regardless,
it's certainly not the first time that people have felt that way. But that line that people often repeat is from that play. But anyways, yeah. I mean, all it comes down to me is that I don't think arranging society based on greed is good for the human spirit. And I think we see the consequences of that all around us.
So
a hyper-capitalistic society like
greed needs to have bumpers. Okay, because the idea that we can live in a society without greed is a fairy tale. It just doesn't exist, and you can't approach a practical way of governing a huge body of people.
You could argue it's a fairy tale right now. Maybe we can get to the point where we've societally conditioned everybody to be really cool dudes. Really cool guys. Maybe I don't know. Maybe we can get there. It'd take a while though. So
without looking at it realistically, because at the end of the day, if you look at the USSR again, and I mean it's a catastrophe because the people on the top who rise to the top are the ones that are pathological. They are greedy.
You don't think that happens in our society?
It is, but like, but that's not the antithesis of everything that we stand.
Yeah, it happens in our society too, of course. It's that we have more power to fight against it in our society because we don't have like really oppressive governments that have the ability. Our government isn't nearly as oppressive as like Russia and China. We have freedom of speech. We have the ability to say things. We have, and like a hot take, we have guns. We need to regulate guns better, but guns, that gives a healthy amount of fear from the government to from people to the government as well. Yeah, like we are freer. There absolutely is corruption and we need to do more about it, but you can vote against it. You're right. A lot of times young people won't vote. There's more action you can take in our capitalist society. Our capitalist society is objectively freer than like other ones that are more communist leaning, right? This doesn't even necessarily matter what you want to label it. It's just like, yeah, I think that capitalism overall is like decent. It just needs a heavy reload. So
you think that capitalism does a better job at harnessing
you have to be aware. Say, listen, we live in a world where greed is inevitable, and so we need to harness that for the good that it does provide, and we need to put on bumpers for the bad things it does do. Because if we're like, yo, we need communism, and greed is bad, and nobody, everyone is equal. The cycles are going to rise to the top, and they're not going to fucking do what needs to be done. It's just not going to happen, and it's not realistic. People are going to cut. They're not going to live that way. They're not going to live that way. The psychopaths, which there's going to be like 10, 20% are just full-on psychopaths, are the ones that are going to become powerful, and they're going to take advantage of the system. They're going to become our oligarchs. They're going to become
So do you believe that
exploitative.
Do you think the United States, with like its democracy, like our election system and democracy, gives good safeguards, or at least gives some safeguards to preventing the sociopaths, like you're talking about, that rise up through like a totalitarian system?
That's not even a problem that you can control for. There's no way we're going to keep sociopaths from becoming billionaires.
Elections and being a democratic and term limits, or having our president change every 4 years.
Are we talking about like rich people or elected officials?
I'm talking about elected officials. I'm talking about like, essentially what I'm asking is, do you think democracy is a good thing, and do you think democracy is what helps prevent?
Yeah, but obviously our democracy isn't perfect either.
Right.
But
you think ultimately that being a democracy, living in a society that votes and has, the people agree on how who should represent us and who should lead us, is something like that's a better system than like say China, right?
Yes,
where
of course.
They have a council of elites and somebody is elected from within, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what if we ran companies that way? Because companies aren't democracies; they're totalitarian.
Yeah, I don't think that they need to. First of all, that's not even necessarily true. So here's the thing. No, I don't think that we necessarily need to do that. Generally speaking, you would have elected officials that would run the company in the best, or excuse me, elected officials run the country in like the best way based on like the workers' advocation. Absolutely. I understand that, but I don't think that when it comes to America, generally speaking, everybody has like an investment into existing in the society. When it comes to the business, I don't think it's necessarily going to manifest itself the same way. When it comes to business, there's nothing wrong with a boss running things, but then there should be, I think, some kind of unionization is a good idea to advocate for the workers. But not everything the workers want are going to be good for the business. But there also needs to be like a standard set. We don't need to have everybody not everybody's invested in the business actually working out well. I've worked jobs before. There are people who are lazy, worthless pieces of shit, and they fucking suck dick, and you do more work to them even if you get paid the same amount, or they're fucking stupid. And I don't know, they shouldn't own any portion of the company because they're fucking stupid and they don't know what the fuck they're doing. So no, I don't think that businesses are going to thrive with fucking morons that are day ones of the company or don't know anything about anything should be able to go, oh, I should run part of this company. People should get paid well. They should get advocated for by some kind of a union system. But no, not everybody should run a business. Like, what a stupid idealized way to go. Like, people are stupid. People are fucking worthless in jobs, and people don't have high investments. No, like, how does this manifest itself? Do you think that the guy at McDonald's that is working the cash register should own a portion of the company? Probably not. You know why? He doesn't care about McDonald's. He's going to leave in 6 months because the turnover rate is pretty high. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, no. So no, I don't think that we need workers to be able to control any of the means of production, but there should definitely be safeguards in place. So
So how do you run a company?
Especially since when it comes to government voting, it's everybody voting for the government to work in like an infrastructure. When it's people in like a business, it's so much smaller. You really just like that. I think that it's okay for people to own businesses and to be able to take that risk and be able to get money out of that, as long as there's decent worker protections as well.
So first of all, usually how are companies made? Usually,
are you saying like an entrepreneur?
Yeah, somebody decides to make a company. They take their money and they use that to make an investment into that business, and they help that business grow. Some people start off much higher with a lot of money, et cetera, but that's generally how it works.
Entrepreneur starts a small business,
like Apple. Let's just take Apple or Google.
Right.
It's made by a few enterprising people. So yada yada yada. It's made by 3-4 people. Apple.
There's nothing wrong with like profit sharing, but it sounds like they want there to be a control. Like if everybody that worked for a company got a percentage of the profits, like I'm fine with that. I don't care about that. That's fine. That's not a bad idea. But when it comes to them having, maybe I just misheard, an equal amount of like control or a vote on how the company operates, I just don't know if that necessarily is realistic.
And over the years, it's growing. And so how do you run Apple?
At what point does it become like subject to public opinion on who's going to run it and stuff like that? At what point does it get big enough to make those decisions?
And that's something that, see, that's why I asked the question about how do you feel about elected.
Because like an independent artist is also running a business and could be making a lot of money, depending. There's a wide range. So
yeah, you're better off having the government take like percentage of the wealth and the profits from Apple and redistributing that into a way that would benefit everybody else.
How do we what do we define as?
Businesses aren't government.
No, they're not.
It's part of like the freedom we enjoy.
But I agree that like a company like Google is almost like government.
Yeah, we're
that's a whole different aspect of regulating these like monster businesses.
Right, and oftentimes, when there are critical parts of society that we deem like off limits to the private sector, we're like, let's say like the military. We don't, the government has a monopoly on that, right? Monopoly on like keeping an armed force and everything.
Yeah.
And at least in theory.
Just to be clear, like somebody said the R slur in my chat, and I obviously banned though. And then some fucking moron was like, I've seen people say the N-word every other sentence. Not in my community. So stop being a baby and trying to incite a fucking riot because you want to say the R slur in my chat. Like you can leave. I don't care if you're a member. Like to express such a dumb opinion. I've seen people use the N-word in every other sentence and not get banned, but the R-word, oh buddy, you better look out. Not a single person uses the fucking N-word in my chat. Even black people who come into my chat, or come into like my fucking Discord calls when I talk to them, I ask them not to use the N-word even with a fucking soft A sometimes. Because like I just would rather keep that out of the community. So for you to be such a stupid fuck to pretend that like, oh, people are just saying the N-word. No, they're not. You're just stupid. You want to cry because you can't say the fucking R slur in my chat? Like, what do you think? Because you've been like a member here for a long time that you can like have like a fucking like the R word is it's a bad word. It's a fucking slur for people with disabilities. Why are you such a fucking baby? Like, holy shit! Like, why are you so desperate to be fucking bigoted towards people with intellectual disabilities? Like, what are you fucking stupid? Like, I don't understand. Like, what is the issue here? Like, will you have a problem because I banned somebody for saying the R slur? And you're gonna have a fucking triggered meltdown and claim that people will say the N word every fucking day in my chat. You're a fucking moron. You're just a fucking stupid person. I'm just being very clear. I know that you're like a regular in here, but it's such a fucking dumb thing for you to say. I'm fucking triggered beyond belief because you're just making dumb shit up. Like, I'm fucking astounded by how stupid your fucking perspective is on this. Like, in what world? Where do people say the fucking N-word every other day in my chat? What are you, a fucking toddler? Grow up. So, anyway, back to the fucking video.
I mean, obviously, there's a whole different conversation, but, in the United States, we have some say over what our military does as a result of that, right? Because we elect the people, we elect the commander-in-chief, we elect who's in charge, and we elect the person who is able to control the armed forces, right?
I mean, theoretically, the armed forces should be controlled by Congress, which hasn't really ever been taking place recently.
You're right. Yeah, according to the Constitution.
But you're saying, what are you saying? Just, you know what I mean?
I'm just saying that we can agree that there are certain things in society that we have decided that it's best if this is not left up to the entrepreneurial spirit, right?
Yes.
Yeah, sure, I agree with that. Yes, because that's a different, like military, healthcare. Those are things that shouldn't really be left up to entrepreneurial spirit. Generally speaking,
government should be in charge of.
But when it comes to other things, like yeah, sure, why not? Like when it comes to like fast food, who cares? When it comes to certain structures, it doesn't really matter. I don't think that there's anything like when it comes down to it. You have to look at like an analysis of what is positive and versus negative and what the potential issues could be, right? So when it comes to the military, obviously you don't want to give a private company the ability to run the military police because they could be incredibly abusive with it. They could do the same thing with something else, something like fast food, but it's not nearly as accessible to people. Or rather, it's much more accessible. So you're probably not going to see a bunch of people. Well, actually, you are, right? Because we need a better, more effective FDA because they're feeding people like shit. But that would be we don't need to have the government run fast food industries. What we need to do is have the government regulate fast food better so that they stop poisoning people and are better about it. It's just about the solution to the particular problem. It's gonna vary. Like, sure, we could decide to do fucking government run McDonald's. I think it's okay if we just decide to have a more effective FDA, right? It's just going to depend on what you're doing, because I think it's fine, because some things, competition can breed innovation. Obviously, you can't have competition in a military, but
of stuff that has a great social
right. And so
value.
some people might think that the work that people are required to do to live in our society is also something essential and should be controlled more democratically in the same way that we control government institutions.
How?
Like what?
The same. I mean, what do you mean?
that?
How we do? There are public institutions, right?
So electricity isn't invented by one dude who's just like, I have this great idea, I'm going to make a company.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The internet isn't owned by one dude. You know what I mean? Water isn't owned by one dude. Just by the definition of a utility.
It
so if
belongs to
Google,
the
how are you going to go to a guy who founded Google and say, how do we make the government? We're taking it for the government. So what does that mean? What does that mean?
Okay, well, I mean, so I feel like there's two tracks here, because there's how do we like you're now asking like how, because we're in deep, right? There's a sunk cost here. We've built a society the way that we are, and ripping that all out is going to be a very disruptive process. So you're right. Like if the government tomorrow were to nationalize all of Silicon Valley and just say, yeah, these are all publicly owned and take.
This is a problem, though, is that nobody is able to give an answer to this very basic question. That's why people have these problems. Like, that's why people have these issues, because you can't give it like, hey, you want the workers to run particular businesses. How does that work? And you can't give an answer to it. Why do you think people are so fucking annoyed when you come up with like you say shit like this? There's no answer to the question. So like, what are you saying?
It all away. Obviously, people wouldn't go quietly with that, especially the people that own Google. They wouldn't like that, right? And so, I mean, that's something that has happened in history a lot when socialist revolutions happen. When the revolution happens and it's like, okay, we're going to nationalize all the oil industry. Like that all just belongs to the government now. You don't get to own that as a private citizen anymore. And so, where is that line? What is essential to society?
But
what
oil,
is it?
Again, oil. You're talking about a natural resource. I'm talking about like a big company.
Sure.
They invented their own product and sell it. I personally don't think there's anything wrong with the rules that govern that come from, the people, from the concepts of guardrails, high level, that they have to treat their employees with a certain level of, they have to compensate them to a certain level
we're
to
coming back
provide.
to that social democrat.
So like,
and listen, social.
so
Like,
I don't
got a
think
problem with what you're describing, really. Like, I agree. I mean, and
I don't think putting the government in charge is going to improve anything. If you were talking about like massive businesses like, Google, again, just to use an Apple, you're talking about natural resources that benefit all people that need, then that's it. Then, but listen.
I should be clear. You said that you were joking when you said that the R slurs, it wasn't, what's the joke? Like, I could read exactly what you said. It wasn't a joke. I banned somebody for using the R slur. You said R word is a no-no in this community. But I've seen people use the N word in every other sentence and not get banned. But the R word, oh, buddy, you better look out. What's the joke? Are you just pretending to have like a traumatic brain injury? It's just a weird joke. It just doesn't make any sense. So we're just going to move on from that. Pretend this never happened.
I'm open to having a debate.
I honestly just don't believe it was a joke. I think you said something dumb, but I don't really care.
I'm not saying one way or the other.
Conversation about it. I just think that, I think it comes down to, again, where that line is drawn. And it's like internet stuff, for example. You're right. I mean, especially in the early days when it's just little companies figuring it out. But then at a certain point, when does the internet become a human right? When does living in society, does the internet become a requirement? And does it become fucked up to deny people that because they can't afford it?
Sure.
No, I agree with that.
And so it starts to get kind of gray, right?
Well, I'm looking at this nuance. I'm not saying we need to have conversations.
I mean, you could always talk about a tiered system. It's like, oh, everybody should have access to the internet. So we have everybody the internet for free, I guess, and then have like private businesses that do better internet, because there's different levels of it. I guess you could say that. I mean, I don't necessarily care about the internet. I think it's already pretty accessible. You see people on welfare that have like iPhones, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, although I think an iPhone might be a little much. So yeah,
about stuff as it happens, and we need to have it from like a benevolent point of view and a realistic point of view. I'm not saying I'm open to having a conversation about socializing anything, right? But that's what it should be. It should be a conversation and about like the social good that something can have, and if it needs to be, is it being, is this business being owned privately to a great detriment to the majority of people? Are people not having access to it who need it? And this is a conversation to have on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, and so you're an incrementalist, and you think.
And so far, like we're talking about the really big companies, which we all agree.
Is Dan not an incrementalist? What does that mean? What is Dan like? What is his opinion on this topic? That's one thing that's bothered me. Does he give us like his actual opinion? Like, what are you? What's your perspective, bro?
On that, like Google, Facebook, all the scary stuff. I agree, 100%. But like, what about the in between? What about everything else, like under that?
But I'm not. But again, I'm talking about like regulations. I'm talking about like antitrust shit. I'm not talking about full government takeovers of the company.
Okay, right, but it doesn't. The full government takeover of the company is the extreme end of that. But like the middle ground of what I'm talking about is unions. That's what unions.
I'm
right?
pro-union. I think unions are great. And
that's not what you're talking about, because this is the thing. He doesn't know what he's talking about, because then you would have just said, I think that there should be unions. Yeah, I agree. Unions are a good thing, generally, unless unions suck in the dick of the company. My union was sucking the company's dick. That's why they let them take away my benefits. But generally speaking, sure, unions are great. That's not what he's talking about at all. If he was for unions, he would have just said, I'm for unions. He feels walked back into a more reasonable point by Ethan. That's how you know Ethan like won the conversation or won the little debate. But yeah, unions are great. You're overcomplicating it. It's not, you don't believe in a union.
I think workers should have power.
So right, and so all a union really is in a sense, it's somewhat democratizing a workplace, because now the union gets a say in how the business is conducted. Hey, the workers, we're all getting together and we're saying, unless you improve this, unless you do this, we're not showing up. We're going to prevent
This is a negotiation. This is a conversation. You know what I mean? It's not like it's not a government interjecting and telling a business what they can and can't do.
Well, in a sense, it is, because government gives protections to unions. We at one point decided that these are important, and we created a structure where we
I'm in favor of that.
Right.
That's not what you were talking about initially. Like, yes, governments do protect unions. I understand that, but that's not what he was talking about. Because if he was talking about unions from the first part, you know what he would have said? He would have just said, I support unions. It wouldn't be this complicated.
Because prior to that, the owners of the factory or whatever, when the workers tried to do something like that, they literally fucking shoot them.
Right. So yeah,
you know what I mean?
Not okay.
That happened.
Okay, but I'm in favor of unions.
Okay, well,
and by the way, if you look at what you look at Scandinavia, which I think is like as close to a model society, they have tons of unions,
participation rate, right?
Yeah, right?
Like extremely.
And probably tons of laws protecting unions. And so again, I'm looking at social democracy like in Scandinavia and saying, this is a model society, and it's as close as we're going to get as an equitable society, realistically, too.
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand what is the point we don't agree on.
Well, I just here's what
we're
think we're that far apart from each other.
You saying anti-capitalism. Are you opposed to the idea of capitalism? Because I agree that capitalism in its current form is unsustainable.
I would say that I am opposed to it, but I would say I am far less radical than many that think that we should tear it down immediately.
I'm a big fat guy. I'm just sitting here eating chips and watching Ethan climb. Yeah, what is this guy saying, though?
That the ripple effect of that would inevitably be...
Yeah, a system shock would be a bad idea.
Extremely violent and disruptive to society, and I'm more of the incrementalist. Now, I would say I am further left of you, because I think that the end goal should be a little bit further in that direction than what you're saying, but...
In what way?
Which is why
Yeah, in what way? Like, what is he talking about? Like, what is not left enough for him? This motherfucker's talking about universal healthcare and universal jobs. So what is he talking about? What is his end goal?
We're talking in degrees.
In what way? Yeah.
Like what?
In what way are you? First of all, saying like capitalism shouldn't exist is like, I feel, a fairy tale. It's just not a realistic expectation for humans to. I just
or like
don't.
for me, it's like define what would that look like. I just want to like get to an understanding where we understand
in
each
really
other.
Simple terms, I think that an incrementally pushed left society that's moving away from capitalism a little bit would likely have companies use profit sharing models with their employees on a much bigger basis. And
sure, that's fine. I don't really care. I don't think that we need to force profit sharing things, but sure, maybe. I think it's a cool idea, but we don't have to force that. For me, like I don't like I talk about that basically when at UBI, like take money from these businesses, collect taxes and whatnot. and redistribute that wealth. I guess I kind of agree. I don't think that you need to necessarily forcefully do that, because you're going to see fewer and fewer. This is the thing. The problem, one of the biggest problems with the profit sharing model, it's just not a bad thing overall, but the problem with making that like the biggest way that we monitor the system is that jobs are disappearing. So like, oh, you have to share profit with your employees. Okay, well, I just cut my employees. I'm a factory worker, and I just cut my employees by 80%. There you go. You're done. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, there you go. We're done. We're done there at that point, because we've already, like, they're just going to get rid of. That's what's happening now. Like, as there's more and more protections for workers and paying them better, which is a good thing. Businesses, the low skill labor like McDonald's and Walmart, they're cutting out jobs, and so like, how do we account for that? Again, that's why I'm a UBI guy, because there's just ways to skirt around this type of shit. So, hey, thank you so much for the 3-month sub, Spunky Monkey. 3-month anniversary heart. Thank you, brother.
And you see some companies doing that, but if you study it over time, what has happened is the opposite of that, is that the profits of companies are getting concentrated more and more up.
Well, we're just talking about regulating and stuff again.
Right. So I would say that one thing that you could do is you could regulate it, that you, as an owner and a CEO of a company, the profits that the company is generating, you're obligated to share that with the people that work for you on a much bigger scale.
It's just a matter of how
right
fairly...
now, which the goal always is to pay your workers as little as possible. That is, and that's not like a secret.
And that's human nature, bro. That's why we need to adjust where that bar is. We need to agree that bar, because listen,
I think billionaires should be able to exist. No, we shouldn't have billionaires existing if there is if we have people that are homeless, which is a much more complicated conversation, because a lot of people have mental health problems that are homeless. But
it's only natural.
Again, that's why I'm saying we're not that far away. We're talking in degrees of how far you move the bar. I'd probably move it further than you, but I'm not. I don't own a company like.
But yeah, I mean, listen, if you're just debating on like how much to compensate your employees fairly, that's like, you know.
And we're talking about first steps
to
here.
Be like,
too.
yo, I think every company should give X amount of profits to employees. It's also over.
My question is, does Ethan do that? Does he give a certain amount of his profit to his employees? As a genuine question. Because if he doesn't, then it's kind of hypocritical of him to say that.
Really complicated, because in the sense, it's like, what if you don't have a profitable year? Then the employees make less? Also, fudge the number. How many businesses fudge their number?
But what you just described happens all the time.
Okay,
People
but
get
I'm
fired,
not talking about what happens.
Or they get wage.
Well, okay, so the argument against that, the profit sharing model, is that like, if your business starts doing worse and the employees get paid worse, it's going to disincentivize them from wanting to work. So it may not be a good idea to necessarily do it like that. In some instances, I'm not saying it's always a bad idea, but that would be part of the issue. If your employee isn't like emotionally invested in the company, then the profit sharing model is probably not going to work as well, because when they start seeing money go down, they're going to care less. When it comes to somebody that's like higher up with more investment, then it could definitely be a positive. Like some kind of a YouTube editor might really be heavily incentivized by the model, the profit sharing model.
What happens is not good. What is happening is not good. We both agree.
Yeah, no. I think, obviously we both agree.
Why
on
was
that.
there like a little?
100%.
Why was there a little Ethan thing?
Good, we both.
Times.
Okay, but I'm not talking about what happens.
Or they get wage cut.
What the hell is this? Why is there a ghost Ethan?
What
here?
happens is not good. What is happening is not good.
Fuck?
We both agree.
Sure.
Yeah, no. I think, obviously we both agree on that. Yeah, 100%. You said what's happening?
What's
now?
happening now is not good.
Yeah.
But okay. I think having a bare minimum bar of what we provide, basic human rights to people, like FDR was carving out, is a better system, personally, and a simpler system, a more realistic system.
Okay.
I feel like the conversations of like how far to go are like, I'd be willing to have them, but I feel like first I just want to see like normal shit happening. You know what I mean? Like
we saw here, like Dan couldn't even articulate his point. Like from the start. That's just the problem when you talk to communists. They don't have a fucking idea. Like they don't know what they're looking for.
That's the thing is like,
a lot of them are just looking to disrupt the system.
Again,
that's almost like
I have like my
land.
personal beliefs of like idealism of like how I would love to see the world work with like rainbows and everything, and then I have the other side of like, okay, we live in the real world. What can happen or whatever? And so those are different conversations. And so I mean, for now I would, I
wish I had a fucking dragon to fly on. Ideally. But, hey, what are you gonna do?
Public health care would be great. You know, like that's the thing is, in my opinion, we're in such a bad spot that like, you know, I'll take just getting Medicare for all. Like that would be a huge W, sure.
Medicare for my mommy.
That's, in my opinion, not far enough, but I'll take it. I'm not going to say no to that, right?
People think that, I don't know. Listen, people think it's being pessimist to say it's human nature to be greedy.
It's not.
Show me one time in a big organized society.
I think it's too idealist to not understand that. Like, yeah, people can be very greedy. I think that, like, you have to be very unself-aware to not acknowledge that point. Like, self-awareness is going to be, like, paramount in your acceptance of that, of understanding that. Because people are very greedy.
That wasn't the inevitability of, like, deep-seated societal destroying corruption.
But do you want to live in a society that encouraged that? Or
do I want to live in a perfect utopia? Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I'm not saying perfect utopia. I'm saying quite a few people that run our country, and I'm not saying you feel this way, because this isn't your opinion, but this is the prevailing attitude in this country, is that it's a good thing to arrange the way we run society around, let's embrace that greed. Let's use it for good, like you said, rather than, hey, this is a fundamental part of human nature, we should check it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the difference.
Well,
right?
it's to me,
and we do that in some ways. Like, that's why there's no privatized police, right? We should just do that more, which has been Ethan's argument from the start. The problem is that you're juxtaposing that to a communist society where everybody makes the same amount of money. That's my understanding, because nobody ever explains otherwise. All the same jobs worked. It's just, yeah, no shit. Like, obviously, if I'm a fucking doctor, I'm going to be pissed that somebody who has significantly less value to society, like somebody who's doing a different job, makes the same money as me. That's human nature. Like, I think that people should be rewarded if they work harder. Fuck, I forgot the food.
Not that big of a difference. It's
I
the same thing.
I think there's a fundamental difference there.
I'm not saying, like, there are people who are going to be extremely innovative and effective that are going to be motivated by wanting to be really rich and really powerful.
Yeah, I mean,
Elon Musk is a good example. The guy's a fucking psycho piece of shit. I hate him on a level, but, like, what he's achieved with Tesla is undeniable in terms of moving EV to mainstream.
Well, you would argue that was governmental because he gets massive, like, tax cuts from doing that. So
it just is undeniable, right? And I don't even want to give him the credit because I fucking hate him. I think he sucks. But, like, saying, like, making this, distinction between promoting greed or putting guardrails to prevent from greed, it's just, there's not a significant difference there, in my opinion. Unless you can explain. By the way, people were saying this is worse than Dead Air. The show's over, right? I mean, it's been over. Just leave if you don't like it.
What time is it?
yeah, true. If you don't like it, you could just dip out.
After 5.
It's after 5.
This is just,
we got caught up.
We gotta go.
You gave yourself no green flag for not wanting to talk about politics, and then you just launched into an hour-long diatribe about socialism versus capitalism.
Diatribe.
So, liar.
I think it's interesting.
I think social democracy is the way to go. It's just realistic, man. And I'm pro-union, and I think people should be fairly compensated. I think people are entitled to own a home. I think people are entitled to go to college. I think people are entitled to, have healthy meals. And I also think that I don't think that we should regulate how rich people can be if they're existing in that sandbox. Like, I'm not going to come out here and say billionaires shouldn't exist because.
Well, yeah, of course they shouldn't. That's a silly take. You don't have to necessarily care exactly how much a person makes, but you can look at a structure and say, well, we have billionaires, which is a lot of money. Maybe we should be able to take some of their money and help poor people out with it, because excuse me, they don't even close to need it. They don't need that much money. It's just sitting doing nothing.
If you can become a billionaire in this sandbox where you're paying your fair share to provide for people,
I would argue that you probably can't get to a billionaire status by paying your fair share.
This way, making sure you live in a society where people get houses, where people get food, where people get education. If you can do all that and still be a billionaire, then there's no problem with that, in my opinion. There's just,
well,
you know what I mean?
We've had this discussion before, but I think it just comes down to whether or not you believe you can get to that level without doing horrible shit.
Yeah, I don't think that you can
doing horrible shit. You mean, like, can you?
Is that even an attainable thing without being an immoral person?
There's billionaire has become a huge range. Look at people on the top. They're worth 200, 300 billion.
Yeah, Elon Musk billionaire is
sick.
Like a lot more than a 1 billionaire.
Can you become that rich without doing horrible things? Definitely not. Can you get $1 billion without doing horrible things? Probably.
Well, billionaire shouldn't exist as a snappy slogan. Maybe you can quibble about where the line of acceptability is, but I think you understand in principle that at a certain point, that level of wealth, concentrated wealth,
in my model society, I don't think people could become that rich.
What about, like, Taylor Swift worth $740 million?
She's just an entertainer. Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. That when you say billionaires shouldn't exist, I think.
Well, I mean, she does take advantage of her fans by charging outrageous ticket prices, and I understand that's Ticketmaster that does it, but she could advocate against it and like have to take a smaller venue and a smaller cut. So she's 100% siphoning that. Now you don't have to go to that industry, so it doesn't really matter. But like, absolutely, she takes advantage of that shit though.
It's about time we start making a distinction between like 100 billionaires and like
I think
single-digit billionaires, because there is a big
difference.
difference.
Is Ethan close to being a billionaire? Like, what the fuck's happening? What is up with this like bizarre defense run? I don't really get it. Is he doing an Among Us thing?
You know what
I
I mean?
mean,
There is.
You don't
Like
think
a
it's
lot
a
of
little silly to
musicians.
quibble over that? Because again,
Not really.
it's a political slogan at the end of the day, and I feel like it gets the
Well,
point
it's,
across.
I
pretty
think that
easily, right?
I think that it's not self-serving, because I think plenty of people see that and they think what I'm seeing and they think that's silly. Why shouldn't people be able to be successful? Because there are people who are way too fucking rich and evil, you know, clearly, who got that rich. It's, you know, I think there's a difference between, like, let's say Elon Musk is 300. How wealthy is Elon? He's like 250 billion or something.
Something like that.
So he's 250 times richer than a 1 billionaire. So let's say you have 10.
Obviously, he's on the most extreme.
Let's say you have $10,000 in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
So what's that times 250?
Let's
you know?
say that Elon Musk hit the gritty. How do we feel about that?
You know what I mean? Like the difference is really quite huge. 250 times, you know.
2.5 million, right?
So that's a big difference, right? Between 10,000.
I'm not. Yeah, listen.
That's the difference between having $10,000 and 2.5 million.
Yeah, but at a
having
certain-
$1 billion is like you can do anything you want. Having $200 billion is like you can
Why is he like hard defense running for billionaires? Like, I don't get it. Like, why does this point mean so much to him?
influence elections and change. And you
Right.
can like fundamentally control the outcome of current events.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Yeah.
Well, we
listen,
can
again,
with
it sounds like I
$1 billion too, I
pretty
guess,
much agree with you
okay.
in principle. It's just we disagree about where the line is. I think if you're at $1 billion, you're already well over the line. To you, maybe it's more than
True.
that,
But if it's
I
a
don't
if
understand
it's a
that.
musician that got there, I don't think they did anything bad. You know, you're saying
Oh, sure. Well, sure. I can agree with that. Like, it doesn't mean that they necessarily actively did something bad or wrong, but clearly there were aspects of the system that are a problem. I don't understand though. Like, they seem like I get what they're saying. Sure. I don't. Why is this conversation so fucking long? It feels so redundant and unnecessary.
you had to have done
there's
bad
entertainers
stuff
that are
to get
billionaires.
to $1 billion.
Who's a billionaire?
Taylor Swift is almost $1 billion.
Taylor Swift is almost there, if not already there, because I'm just looking at Google. You know, I don't know how accurate
But
that
again,
is.
Listen, rock stars are cool and they can be as rich as they want.
Let's see, Beyonce. I don't know,
Jay-Z.
Rihanna.
Well,
I mean, that doesn't make any sense. If you agree with the whole idea that you can use money to sway elections, then you don't agree that they should be able to have that much money. But okay, well, I don't care. Like,
Jay-Z
Let's not
doesn't.
just make it money.
Rihanna is accordingly 1.4
But
billion.
because she makes a lot of money from business and stuff.
Okay, but I don't think she necessarily does bad stuff to get there. I don't
Well,
see that.
she.
I don't know her
who
as a
knows?
person, but
That's the thing. That's the
I
thing.
don't know, man. Some of her employees are missing limbs. Maybe I don't know what she's been doing. Maybe I don't know if she's been hurting them or not. I don't know.
Is once it gets to a certain point, there's something along the line that
If
is
you-
probably
what a bad
involving
guy.
some like child slavery or something. You know what I mean? Even without their knowledge.
Bro, do you see this? This guy opened up to gank me. And there was a rogue here ready for it, and he fucking shit on the guy the second he opened up on me. Did you see that? That was nuts, bro. I'm sorry, I tried not to distract from the video. But that was fucking baller of that guy. Bro, why you gotta put a hunter's mark on me, dude? I'm about to get ganked like 8 times.
But it's like the system lends itself to that. Again, because we're so focused on incentivizing, finding the least common or the lowest common denominator in everything, by which I mean seeking to maximize
Rewards,
profits, seeking
whatever
to
that.
minimize expenses however you can. And there's a lot of people that are immoral and they don't give a fuck about if this is coming from child slavery in some West African country or whatever.
Someone said,
And
"Ethan, $1 billion would
I
change
just
my
think
life."
The system
Sorry,
it
I don't
doesn't,
have that money.
it doesn't frown on that really. In
Sure.
a lot of ways,
I
it
think that's
encourages
another
it.
philosophical conversation about like how is our society, whether it be pure socialism or democracy, how is it using and affecting other countries? You know,
Well, yeah, I
that-
mean, they say you can't literally touch anything without potentially like lending abuse to the system. Like the tomatoes we eat, have like abuse associated with farmers in other countries and shit. Like, yeah, I understand that. Very difficult to be like fully ethical in the entire framework. So,
that's a
hey, thank you so much for the sub pounding off. Incredible name.
I think perhaps a different conversation.
It
That
gets
you can have,
complicated
and you can
real
have the same conversation regardless. But I see a world where you can become a billionaire ethically. It's not impossible. There's 300 million people living in America, and there's a ton of money here. If you invent a really fucking awesome thing, you can become a billionaire without doing a single thing wrong.
Maybe.
Okay.
I feel like that's a pretty That's the middle path. That's the real Buddha path. Become a billionaire, but harm no other in the process.
I think it's possible. I really do. I don't know what to say.
That's the middle way.
But I'm not saying
a hardcore
you
WoW
go out there and
challenge.
be a billionaire. I'm just saying I don't think we need this self-imposed, like, here's the line, rich and no richer.
I just don't think you should let a slogan like that bother you so much. It
I
sounds
think-
like,
but I don't
you
think-
agree with the spirit of the slogan.
I don't think the slogan serves itself well because, like I said, people are not seeing it like we're just talking about like 100 billionaires. People.
He might be right at an optics point. I don't really know how everybody would feel. I personally think billionaires are fucking stupid and there's no point. I mean, that's like 1,000 to millions, so what's the point? But like, I don't know if how most of the country probably doesn't care. If he wants to say, like, from an optics perspective, it's not a good idea, maybe. I just feel like this conversation is so unnecessary at this point.
See that and they say,
no, the poor single billionaires.
Well, how are you? But like,
Come on.
They don't like the idea of you coming and taking people's money. It doesn't make sense. Like, how are you going to do that?
Taxes.
I mean, isn't that what taxation is? That's all they're talking.
Well, they go
taking
99%
money.
tax over every dollar of a billion. That's silly.
I mean, that's what FDR
Why? Why is that silly?
is. That's all they're talking.
Well, they go
taking
99%
money.
tax over every dollar of a billion. That's silly.
Why would that be silly? Like, just so people are clear, the taxes are marginal. So once you hit a certain point, the money is taxed over, like, at that a certain percentage over that point. So, like, I don't know what exactly our system is now, but, like, let's say we have a 10% tax on anything at 10,000 and 20% on anything up to 20,000. That means that your first $10,000 are taxed at 10%, and then your next $10,000 up to 20% are taxed at $20,000 are taxed at 20%. It's a marginal tax rate, right? Yeah, what would be wrong? A lot of billionaires aren't paying themselves $1 billion, right? A lot of times they might actually pay themselves very little, and it's like stock tie-ups and whatnot, and it's complicated and things that I don't necessarily understand fully. But, like, yes, there's nothing wrong with being like, oh, your taxes are 90% over after you make, like I don't know, whatever number, $1 million, let's say. Like, okay, if you're somebody who makes $1 million a year as your own business, guess what that has you do? Either one, that money goes to the government, and the government can hopefully do something decent with it, which sometimes maybe they fail at that. Or two, you're more incentivized to pay your workers better because you don't want there's no reason for you to make over $1 million a year. So, like, yeah, I'm not against the marginal tax rate of like 90, maybe even 99. It's up to what economists say. If they're like, yeah, that's practical at $1 million a year, I'd be like, okay, fuck it, who cares? Yeah,
I mean, that's what FDR wanted.
Not 99.
There was, I think, the top tax bracket that FDR wanted was, maybe it wasn't 99, but it was like 95 or something.
Let's see.
Top tax bracket. Let's see.
why is that silly for him? I don't think there's an issue with that.
75%. 75 is what they got. I believe he want 90%.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think 90% is too high, but 75.
Why?
makes
But
more
over,
sense to me.
but we're talking.
Why? We're talking about like $1 million a year. It means that everything after $1 million is taxed at 90%. Your first million is not. What are you talking about? Who cares?
Like,
Yeah.
in modern dollars, that was probably 90% of every dollar over like 5-10 million that you made that year.
Right. It's a tax bracket.
Yeah, it's a progressive tax.
And I like the tax bracket. I think 75% is probably more realistic.
Why?
You know.
Well, that's what it was.
And that's
now
really-
we're at what, like?
And by the way,
18?
I don't think anyone gets taxed that high in the whole world. What's one country that charges the richest people over 75%? It doesn't exist.
I have no idea.
I don't think it does.
I don't know off the top of my
Just
head.
because it doesn't exist doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad idea, but sure. I don't care.
I know that. I mean, maybe.
But
you
I'm
know,
cool
like,
with that.
What's the top tax bracket in Sweden? In those Nordic countries, it's pretty
It's
high.
probably around
It's
55.
it's
55?
not,
So you're
it's
saying
not
like
much more than
55?
what I pay here. I pay about 55%.
Okay. So there you
Also
go.
dividends, you can just pay yourself dividend, 20%.
like 52.3% apparently.
Well,
in
right,
Sweden.
and that's the reality here too, is that everybody that's rich knows how to get around that and just
But I
doesn't
feel like
pay.
it's also
So-
important to like defend the democracy from capitalism, because here like lobbying is crazy. I feel like that's what's ruining America.
And that's my point. Is like
Sure,
I feel well. I didn't make this point very well. I was trying to make the point earlier, but this is why I was asking about what you think about democracy in general. Is that capitalism is it's anti-democratic and in more than one sense. And what Love's talking about is like how the money can corrupt our democracy and everything is a part of that.
Sure, we just have to get a rein on lobby groups. I mean, at the same time, like here's the thing. It's like a fine line because lobbying isn't, I don't think, inherently bad. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I've super fleshed this out. But fundamentally speaking, I don't think there's anything wrong with a business saying, hey, like we have skin in the game. We want to be able to have a conversation about some of the regulations you're going to impose on us. Right? I don't think that that's necessarily like a horrible idea for a business to be able to say, hey, I want to express, I don't like this or I do like this. And I should have a say. I have no problem with that. I think it gets to a point where it becomes too much. Where they have too much control. That's the issue, where they're able to give like massive campaign contributions to have no regulations imposed against them whatsoever. I don't know how lobbying works in Sweden or whatever, how that works, but I don't think it's bad for a business to be able to have a conversation about it. But again, I'm not super educated on all the specifics in the system, so.
But just in general, like we run, the expectation is that companies are run from the top down in a very hierarchical way, and that there isn't much say from the bottom up. You know what I mean? It's the inverse of how we run our government. And so, defending against the worst tendencies of that, I think, is important.
That's what I advocate for.
I'm always so confused because you want to replace the system, and I guess me and Ethan want to.
Sorry, folks, for getting back on the rails. What the hell's happening? Why'd they do this? Why did they cut this?
Wait, hold on. I buttoned that.
What was it?
Oh, what happened? I didn't even hear what
I
you said.
said this, and I felt like maybe it came off wrong. I said, maybe that is his name.
Oh, whatever.
What was it? What's the actual name?
I don't even know what you're going for.
I have no
I
idea.
guess I vaguely know it. You were trying to call me a
communist. Yeah.
Yeah, but
what was his name?
Are you talking about Mao?
Yeah.
Oh my god, this
Right,
screen.
Mao.
This button
But what's
screen
his
is
full
epic.
name?
Mao Zedong.
So you're
yeah, they have
Mao
no clue what we're
Dan
talking
Zong?
about.
I don't know.
So
trying to think of it.
I guess I said
Don't kill
me
me.
and Ethan want to fix the system, like capitalism, like
Yeah.
put band-aids over where it kind of leaks. And
No,
you
not
replace-
band-aids, because that sounds bad.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Right,
But
right,
I
right.
don't want to
We want
replace it completely.
scaffolding.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't get why.
I don't. You don't get why?
I don't
Because
get why you don't want to
because
fix the system.
Oh, Ethan dropped the N word. That's why. Gotcha. That makes sense. He was prone to it. I'm just kidding.
because
So replace it.
what we're talking about. I mean, I am talking about fixing the system
Right,
as well, but
yeah. Sure.
my way of fixing it would be modifying it significantly more than what
Sure.
you're saying. Band-aiding. Not to use that term, but
Yeah.
Cool.
So how do you prevent people from being billionaires? Just by doing a 99% tax?
I mean, that's a real easy way, right? I mean, FDR thought
Kill
it
him.
was. And yeah, I mean,
Well, okay, you want to talk about democracy. I mean, FDR's he's not a tyrant either. You know what I mean? He got 75% ultimately, like you said, and I think I would do 90. I think it's fair anywhere between 75 and 90 for the utmost, you know?
Yeah.
99% to me just seems silly to me to tax someone 99%, even if they're a billionaire.
Well, you know, when he said when he was going for the 90 and got 75, that probably was a negotiating tactic. You know what I mean?
Okay, so 75. I mean, what the fuck? That's not enough. You know what I don't a hell of a
probably
lot
isn't
more than they
enough.
pay
That-
now.
All I'm saying,
Well, I'm not understanding why he's so worried about people who make like a billion, like 90% over $1 billion or whatever. Like, what is he? I don't understand.
is let's start there. Let's start somewhere.
Okay,
you know?
let's jack it up
Okay.
to 75. Let's go.
You know,
Let's fucking go.
I think people are jaded on capitalism, understandly.
Yeah, I mean, we
Right.
live
It's
in
burned
it,
us
so
all.
obviously it's easy to see its flaws because we exist in it now.
And I understand from my perspective, thanks to Gary V's advice,
Different
that I am
perspectives.
like a winner in capitalism, right?
Oh,
you might
loser.
W.
say. Thank you.
Different perspectives.
And so, listen, I've been on the losing end of capitalism too, and more it's screwing us over. But what I'm saying is we don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater, people.
Help me, dude.
It's hard to feel, charitable to capitalism as a concept when almost everyone's being burned by it. But
Well, I mean, you're not Ethan. But.
you look again at Scandinavia. I think that's as close as a model society as
I say try that. Try that in a small town.
we've achieved in human history.
I want Jimmy Lee to start paying his employees. That's all I care about.
Me too, bro.
We can all agree on that one.
Yeah, we all agree on
And I'll
that.
tell you, I'll take it even further. I think it should be illegal to have unpaid employees.
Yeah.
Period.
Damn.
You know what I mean?
I think it is.
Not well, no, internships, like the free
I
labor
guess that's
shit.
true. I mean, yeah.
I thought he just meant not paying his employees, but okay, maybe.
It does seem a little gray, though, doesn't it?
I'm surprised by how many people think that, like, by the way, I say radical communism because, again, you're talking about undoing the vast,
Again, there's like so many like ways to approach it. I mean,
every country,
what I
even
would
the
call-
communist ones are operating via capitalism.
right. Well, there's a lot of nuance to that too. I mean, a lot.
I'm waiting for the we've never done it the right way argument.
We
the
can't
whole
just
thing with
dig it out, man.
was that?
We should just dig it out and replace it. Anti-capitalism, I don't know. I'm
Well, listen, a lot of people agree with you that
not in this chat.
agree with reform rather than revolution.
Yeah, it's smarter.
That's
it's pretty- it's-
a long-standing debate on
Yeah.
the left of what the superior strategy is.
Yeah. But I think capitalism gets a bad rep just because that, up until now, it hasn't been checked. And we're at this point now where we call
Well, it has been checked. Like, it needs to be checked more. But, like, let's be clear. It's not like it's never been checked. I'd say that things are getting worse when they're lowering tax brackets and whatnot. But it has been checked, but sure.
late stage capitalism where it really is on life support. And it's just not working. It's not a good system. Unchecked capitalism is evil. It's
The
not.
big issue with capitalism right now is that's exposing the weaknesses technology, like driving down jobs, like getting rid of jobs is driving down wages. It's the availability of that that's really hitting us hard. There's less jobs that are available for people. There's less people able to work. So
working well. But I do think that a hybrid system of socialism, capitalism is a really good system that can be humanistic, benevolent, and serve also the productivity and innovation that some people would say capitalism breeds.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, we really got.
But by the way,
right?
I want to say,
We gotta go.
Some of you guys in chat are so annoying. Like, I'm not.
Oh, don't let 'em.
I'm not advocating.
get them, Ethan. Get them.
Like, y'all act like I'm saying like I think that there should be no minimum wage and people should be fucking like if they can't afford
Yeah, it's not like he's saying that he thinks that they should feed dogs to homeless people. Like, what kind of a fucking psychopath would say something like that? You know what I mean? When people are saying shit like that, that's when you know that's fucking unhinged. So,
come on, stop it.
Well,
people act like I'm stomping on workers' faces because I don't rev share.
Our audience has a wide range of views, and obviously leans pretty far left, just because all the personalities on the show do.
Listen, every time a measure comes to raise taxes in LA or otherwise, I always vote yes. I said I'm gonna pay 75%. Is that not enough for you guys? No. 75%? What other rich person is saying that?
How much money does this guy make a year when he's like shitting his pants that much over the money being lost? I wonder.
Find one.
Well, listen, I am not a radical communist, so I can't make that argument for them. I'm sure they will in the comment section and on the Reddit over the next few days. But
a single
but yeah, I mean,
I think the greed is a good thing. Threw people off too. I think that people being greedy is an inherent and inevitable trait of human, of the human spirit.
Ethan,
I'm not saying
you don't understand. Greed and selfishness are different. Bro, come on, you gotta kill me right now. Are you gonna kill me right now, dude? Okay. Which is true, right? So everybody's selfishness isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I guess greed is disproportionately high selfishness, and that's the bad thing, you know?
Saying of everybody. I'm not saying everybody's greedy. I'm saying if you take 1,000 people,
greedy.
a certain percent of them are going to be greedy and motivated by power and wealth and status. Okay?
Yeah, especially those people who wouldn't share their gum in class. Like, what the fuck? Why are you so greedy, bitch?
And a lot of times there's going to be an oversight of these people's being sociopaths and being super capable, super smart.
Maybe.
And we can't harness this for
I don't know if they're all sociopaths, but sure.
Good it can do, which is like innovation, productivity, efficiency, and stuff like that,
sure.
while also regulating it to make sure it doesn't also ruin society and that it serves people well in general. And I think that's just realistic.
Yeah, eat the
it
rich,
doesn't matter
baby.
if you're in a society.
Eat the balls.
Doesn't matter if you're living in pure socialism. Doesn't matter if you're living in, any form of governance. There's going to be a percent of people that are highly capable, intelligent sociopaths obsessed with money and status
dank ass
and power.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and there's going to be good people that are successful too. That's not what I'm saying. But these are the people that really cause the problem. And so,
let's not encourage them.
That's just how you do not encourage. That's human nature, bro. Like, I just don't believe that there's ever going to be...
You just don't think that there's anything that you can do about people being greedy and fucking people over? There's just nothing you can do
People are
about
born with fucking, that's like saying, I don't want anyone to be born a sociopath. Let's end sociopathy.
I'm not saying...
You're not gonna.
Yeah, kill them. Just kidding. Don't do that. It's terrible. Here's the thing is that, like, I don't know... I mean, listen, some greed and selfishness in general are, I would say, generally speaking, these are things that can be unlearned. People can learn empathy, and that's socialized for people. So I don't you can socialize people against it. This is where the conversation gets weird, because like Ethan should understand that at the very least that you can socialize people away from the behaviors. It's just like very hard to completely do it 100%, which is why you should have like a profit incentive. Just not in a way that's going to destroy society. Like, it's okay to have a profit incentive. It's okay to have people who are more valuable to society get paid more. It's just that we need to protect people at the bottom as well. That's pretty much it.
You're not going to end sociopathy.
But this is becoming like this argument's just going out of control. It's so unnecessary at this point,
Yeah, of course not.
But I got to see it through, my boy.
Of course, I agree with what you're saying. That
my bungle toad.
There's people are greedy. Just should that behavior be rewarded?
I don't know what that means. What do you mean rewarded? Maybe now it is, but I'm saying
again, nobody. Ian's telling you to shut up.
What the hell's that?
Maybe now it is, but I'm saying
again, nobody. Ian's telling you to shut up.
I have to pee. I'm sorry.
We have to go.
Hold on. What do you mean? What do you? I don't even know what that means. It's encouraged.
What do you mean you have to pee? Piss your pants like this is an Amazon factory.
I mean, it is what it is.
You said it yourself. You said greed is good.
I just said that was misconstrued.
But here's the thing. But okay, fine.
I'm saying it's inevitable.
Right.
And
You
so
don't
let's
believe
harness
that?
it for the good it
Right.
can do.
You don't believe that.
Maybe you should have donated $5 to Ethan until I explained to him the difference between greed and selfishness.
Unfortunately, a lot of the people that run the world do.
Okay, well, that's inevitable.
I don't think that's inevitable. That's where we differ.
Okay.
Well, regardless,
we should do
I don't think
something
it should matter what people think, because ultimately, in the way
The
that
Rock?
the framework that things are built, it's not going to matter what they think about.
It doesn't matter.
I agree.
There's
That's
going to be
and that's why it's not a great framework, in my opinion.
Okay.
why?
Because of what you just said.
It's a framework that doesn't matter what you think about greed,
Right.
and it controls the worst outcome for what they can do. How is that bad?
It controls the worst outcome?
Yeah, in
I'm
my
not sure I
social
follow your
democratic utopia.
Oh, yeah, you're saying, okay, yeah. I'm talking about the state of the world now. You're talking about, like you said, your vision of the future.
What about the state of Fortnite? Does anybody consider that?
Ethan, you guys really think there's people born that aren't going to be like sociopathically greedy? That's
We don't have to go to sociopathically greedy. Like, we can literally just go to, there are people who are born that have that are going to be more valuable to society. It sounds mean, but like, it's the truth. There's going to be people that are going to be born with a higher ability to like be more intelligent or harder working to be able to contribute in that capacity, more empathetic to contribute in that capacity. There's different things that people are born with, and you should reward things that are beneficial to society. Right, but you also shouldn't let people fall off into like irrelevancy and death because they aren't as valuable. Which is why you should again pay doctors more and fucking other, I don't want to keep going to McDonald's workers, because I'm not trying to be like disparaging to McDonald's workers, because like I respect the industry, but pay streamers less. How's that? Make streamers pay people. Okay, because I think what a waste of a fucking job, What am I doing?
seems silly to me, but what do I know?
When you go to Disney, are you going to go to Epcot? Yeah, brother, I am. Give them UBI, baby.
You want to live in a society where
Exactly,
sociopaths aren't born
dude.
anymore. Let's do that. That sounds like a great idea to me. Let's eradicate sociopathy.
Wait, go back, AB. Where's that coming from?
Let's erase
That was
you.
the guy.
I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm
That's
trying to
all,
learn
folks.
his controls.
That's all, folks. Guys, you're right. You guys, here's my platform.
You're getting stun locked.
Let's eradicate sociopathy and personality disorders. We're not gonna encourage that. No more of that, you guys. Everyone's gonna be born a perfect, healthy human with perfect parents, a perfect family. There'll never be any damaged people. It's all good all the time. Let's not even worry about it. Everyone's a saint. Everyone's great. Everyone has humanity's best interest at heart. Definitely not their own.
It's just such a weird tangent to go, because I understand what he's saying. There's going to be people that are going to be born with particular behaviors, like being more selfish and whatnot. But not everybody who's selfish or disproportionately selfish, we'll say greedy. That's what is a fucking sociopath. I think that a lot of times it's like, so, that's why we have robust structures to pull some people, and we should have better robust structures to be able to reform people. So I don't I don't know. This is just like a weird rant. It's also like half the conversation was unnecessary. They could have gotten this out much more quickly.
Let's go, guys. It's perfect utopia time. Everybody's
What
born.
am I doing? The Six Paths of Pain, the gritty.
I want to live in Star
Perfect.
Trek, bro. That's all I'm saying. I just want to live in fucking Star Trek.
Everybody.
I
want to
live there too.
Well,
I love
got
Star
bad news,
Trek.
Hila.
When does Star Trek place take? In like
I love Star
1,000 years?
Trek. But we also need to be able
Get in a
to.
time machine.
Yeah, we need to be able to travel
Oh, wait,
in
those
like.
don't exist either.
We need turbo speed.
Okay, congratulations.
I would never want to use a time machine ever in my life. You know what I mean? I just feel like, what if I accidentally butterfly affected meeting my wife? That would make me so upset. I'd fucking cry. I lied. I lied. I would, because holy fuck, I'm about to die. I'm gonna get so triggered if I die here. This thing is fucking dodging every goddamn attack. I would use the butterfly effect just to go back fucking 10 seconds ago and not die right now. Holy fuck. Just die, you fat fuck. Fuck. Oh, my balls.
Congratulations, we just cured all personality disorders. Every child is born with puppies and toys and futons.
Nobody's making this point.
Futons.
Ay.
And we all have food. Nobody will be hungry because we have food particle generators that can make any meal you want.
Replicators, hell yeah.
Okay, that'd be cool.
Thanks, guys. But yeah, I mean, the show's been over, so I'm just humoring our conversation.
Dan,
but thank you.
You wouldn't
The
have
real
had
heads are
Baldur's Gate in a communism.
That's
all I gotta say.
Kind of true and kind of based. It's kind of based and true.
fair.
That's all I gotta
Are you
say.
saying you want to socialize Baldur's Gate?
You wouldn't be able to
Larian
have,
Studios?
You wouldn't be
Aren't
able
they,
to.
wait a minute, aren't they, where are they from? Larian Studios.
I don't know if this. is gonna make things worse or help, but just say that Ethan, I think you're a wonderful boss. Very good. I've had many bosses.
You know what?
including
I
my
will
own
say that
uncle,
too. Since we're on the
No,
topic.
well, thank you for saying that, AB. Unfortunately, my EP wants to overthrow me and put my head up.
I can't wait to have your cock in my mouth.
Just say thank you,
Whoa.
Ethan. Take a compliment.
Oh, I did. I said thank you, AB, and then I said,
And
"Dan,
Dan
watch
said
it."
it too. But Dan said it too.
No, I know. We have a wonderful relationship.
Eli, I
I
think
know.
you're a great boss too.
Thank
we
you.
have a wonderful relationship here with everybody.
You're better off glazing Hila though, because I mean she's obviously the decision maker in the house. Because Ethan's pussy whipped because he's got no fucking balls. That's why the woman is the one that's in charge of the relationship. I'm pretty sure my wife's not in the chat, so I can say that with confidence. So we're all good. We're okay. I can say that because my wife's probably not in the chat, so she can't yell at me.
In here. I'm addressing people who say that humans aren't born greedy. Some.
I'm going to turn off the chat so you don't get.
Yeah,
can go
They're all
turn it
banned.
up.
It's
Anyone,
5:30, Ethan.
Turn it up. We're
and by
never
the way,
gonna leave.
anyone disagreeing with chat is now permanently banned. All right. Bye, everyone. See you
All
guys on
right,
Monday. Have a great
all
week.
right, dude.
Love y'all.
All right, it looks like that's the end. Interesting conversation. I guess I'm interested in. Oh, this fucking stinky little bitch is killing stuff. I'm gonna log out anyway. Don't clip that for my wife to see, or I'll fucking yell at you. The next part that I want to take a look at though is apparently he got a lot of backlash for being a stinky little bitch. He got some backlash for that. So let's see what somebody linked into the chat. Let me go find that. I think it's under the video suggestion tab. Hey, from the Destiny community on Reddit, why Hassan hides his true beliefs. What? What's this?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what if we ran companies that way? Because companies aren't democracies; they're totalitarian.
So how do you run a company? So first of all, usually how are companies made? Usually,
I would never talk to Ethan about this because this is the one aspect where it goes directly against his best interest.
Google,
right?
Made by a few entrepreneurs.
Like I wouldn't debate Ethan on this front. I mean, obviously it's different for Dan because, like Dan.
Well, you would lose anyway because you're terrible at debating.
Is you know, he works with Ethan in a different way. But if I were to debate someone who is a business owner, friend or not friend, like that's not a talking point that I would use because that shuts you out of the combo aggressively.
Whoa, Hassan talking about debating like he's ever done it in an effective capacity is fucking cum blasting piss farts. All right, so really quick, somebody in the Discord sent a few different things that Ethan, I guess, responded to. So Ethan, he made, dude, how do you have a 25-second picture? Did you do this or did you find this? Anyway, posted, please do not take these political conversations so personally. Being called a class traitor 1,000 times because I'm only a social democrat and not a full socialist makes me not want to have convos like this anymore, which is probably the least productive outcome. True. True that, my friend. We still have ways to go, but having a boss discuss labor with their employee in a public is a positive for sure. Yeah, sure. Agreed. Open discussions are raw, except the employee is risking his job and the employer is risking nothing. You could tell Dan was biting his tongue the whole time. Dan, shut up. This is what I'm talking about. Everybody's a fucking victim on the internet. Yes, as all fans know, I readily fire a crew that disagree with me. Look at these fucking people. Are so dumb. Holy shit. This is wild. My perspective on communism as an indigenous person. See what you have to say. I just wanted to answer Ethan Neal's question on naming societies that have been communist. Native indigenous people gave Marx the concept of collective of a collectivist communist culture. We organize ourselves this way much longer than capitalism has been around. I would say people have known this way of life for a long period in the history than Western notions of private property and capital. Bro, I don't think that that's true. I don't know. Did Marx get communism from fucking... Did Marx get communism from indigenous peoples? Okay, let's see. Okay, both Marx were heavily influenced by Lewis Morgan's speculative evolutionary history, which described the liberty, equality, and fraternity of the ancient gents, and the communism in living said to be evident in the village architecture of the native structures. Oh, maybe it's partially true. I just feel like I don't know if everything's super I don't know, bro. There was we're not even going to get into that. Okay, whatever. I don't care. It doesn't matter. How I sleep knowing there's Dan to set the record straight. Shut up. Okay. Oh, dude, I'm just trying so hard to maximize this, but I just can't press buttons correctly. All right, so Ethan's complaining about being bullied. Is this a DMCA song? Oh, okay. I guess it's just like, Ethan, you're a bad guy, blah, 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 blah. Okay, fun. That was interesting.